her
Thank you very
presentation.
much. Yeah, thank you very much, Ellen. Let me see if I can share my screen here. It says share screen, but yet, okay. Just sorry, this is they've changed the interface when I wasn't looking.
Oh, gee.
Sorry, I don't know why this is not the usual.
Should be between the chat and, or at least on mine, it's not between chat and recording.
No, I mean I'm in this, but they've
Okay.
changed the screen. Maybe I'll just try window and see if that works. I'm sorry, they've been doing some stuff to Zoom and they decided to do that for some reason. Well, I know this is not.
While she's working on that, I can brief
okay,
the group a little bit.
No, that's not it. Sorry.
So what I was going to say is Jennifer and I presented to the state board about a week and a half ago, and the state board has blessed us proceeding to form an initial small study committee to look at citizen initiative and referendum. So we are assembling a team of people from across the state. We have about 8 or 9 people now, and we would welcome others if any of you want to get engaged. Oh, here it is. So again, I'll now turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, so hopefully that's showing the title slide to you guys.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as it says, this is a league-wide study for consensus / concurrence with state league positions on citizen initiative and referendum. So we're very fortunate. I saw we have what I think is maybe a new member, Linda Mann, I believe. It said that she's come up here from Florida, and Florida indeed is one of the states that has made use of citizen initiative. So you know, that's it. There many states, as I'll discuss around the country. About half of them have some form of at least one of these. And so what we're going to be doing is what's called a study, either for consensus within the league or for concurrence with state league positions in other states on the question of citizen initiative and referendum. And we're going to be talking obviously about the statewide study and because we don't currently have this in our program. Our positions and so forth that we've adopted do not include citizen initiative and referendum. And in order to be able to take action, something has to be part of our approved positions and to be added to program. That can either be done by concurrence. In other words, we find a nice state like Florida that we want to adopt their position as our position, or alternatively, there needs to be a consensus developed within the league. And in either case, this is also an opportunity to build league capacity in this area, because we're not going to mince words here. It will be very difficult to get this adopted. But we think there's a very good reason to start down this path and hopefully to get it adopted over the coming decade. So I'm going to talk about why we need it to achieve our league objectives and reinforce our democracy. First, it is critical to redistricting reform, and I'll discuss that at some length, but not too bad. And it's a very valuable tool for other league priorities as well, such as women's rights and getting the ERA approved. It could be very useful for that, I think. It's also we think that the best option for adding CIR to our program is through concurrence with one or more state league positions that are out there. There are at least 15 states that we've identified that have already a position on citizen initiative and referendum, or they have some program elements that cover this or study documents. So there's a lot of work that's been done on this in the league over time. And this statewide study also brings other advantages to us as a league, in that it would help to build up our core capacity in areas that are useful not only for trying to pursue CIR, but also for redistricting and for a whole range of other things that we work on. It will help our members learn how to advocate more effectively, and by helping be sure that everyone's on board and everyone has a good grasp of the basics of the question, so that they can talk to their friends about it, talk to their legislators, and so forth. It could reinforce league leadership in a priority program areas, including redistricting, but again, it's not limited to that at all. And improve communication and collaboration among the leagues. As I'll discuss, the study that we're doing involves people from other leagues, and so this is a good opportunity to really, have more intensive and extended cooperation that we get just from our periodic meetings. And it will, I think, attract attention to the league, since, as far as I know, we're the only ones that are really actively pursuing this, except possibly the News and Observer. There's a real opportunity to call attention not only to the substance, but also to the way the league works, and the really study and before action approach that we take, and provides opportunities in part through all these other previous things to increase our collaboration and our knowledge with other state leagues, particularly in our region, which generally speaking has very few states that have citizen initiative and referendum. And finally, talk a little bit about the study parameters, like how are we going to do this? We really welcome your input on any of these things, and this is a great opportunity. I'm very glad to be able to talk with you guys about this. So first, reclaiming the league study tradition. This is really a proud tradition in the league of doing statewide studies, and really for good reason. The league has had, going back to its very beginnings, when its aim was to help women become informed voters when they gain the vote. They have focused on really educating the members through study, and through finding out about different issues, and through really trying to come up with recommendations, and whether at the local level or at the state level. And looking back at the league's documentation, there's a report that some of you guys may have seen, of the first 75 years, I believe, of ODC, and it goes in year by year what the study topics were at the local level, what the study topics were at the state level, what the study topics were at the national level that the leagues participated in. And we've kind of drifted away from that, become our more casual era that we live in. But they previously were statewide studies, and this is an opportunity to help in rebuilding that. And studies bring value to the league. They show league leadership in areas that are important. It's a great way to get attention. We earlier did a study. It was not a statewide study. It was just a ODC study. It was adopted by the state league, looking at districting policy, what that should be, in particular looking at laws that were being considered at that time. And we got a number of radio appearances and so forth to discuss our findings. And it also emphasizes that we're an evidence-based advocacy organization. We take our positions very seriously, and it distinguishes the league from other organizations. And as I say, strengthens our members' professional skills and knowledge for advocacy, which is a key part of the league's mandate. Concurrence with existing league positions, there could be one or more, or a combination, enables us to add CIR to our current program, which is really imperative given the timing to achieve our agenda. And considering other state league CIR positions and studies taps into the unique league CIR expertise really across the country. In the many states, about half the states have some form of CIR, enabling us to pursue this new program element in a timely manner. And we can also strengthen our ties with leagues in the region, as I mentioned, but even more broadly than that. And this limits the need for new research, because we can build on prior work by our sister leagues around the country. So here's a map that shows, how the different redistricting, what the different forms are of redistricting, and who in particular has an independent redistricting commission. And the ones that are blue, sort of a turquoisey blue there, are the ones that have an independent commission. And no coincidence, those are also, all of those states have citizen initiative and referendum. There are other states that do and do not have an independent commission. I don't want to suggest that they are glued together. But nonetheless, only states that have it have been able to establish an independent redistricting commission. So that is in and of itself an important motivator to say, well, let's try to get it. But there's a little catch here, is that it would require amending our Constitution, which normally requires going through the legislature and having them adopt something with a supermajority in each house, and then it goes on the ballot. That's how our Constitution is currently amended. So I also should note that CIR is not a magic bullet, and that several states that have, particularly those that have a flawed CIR system, have failed to adopt reforms, or the reforms adopted did not work. There's no magic bullet when it comes to redistricting. But there are states that have either a partial or a flawed form of CIR, and they have not been able to use CIR effectively, perhaps not surprisingly. For example, in Missouri, the voters approved a referendum, but then that annulled a reform that they had just adopted, which was to have the map drawn by the state demographer, which was never used. In Ohio, they have a strong tradition of using initiative, but there were several failed efforts to get that to happen. And the League and Common Cause opted to negotiate with the legislature and develop a reform, they successfully adopted the reform, but the legislature did not follow it. And the court action was unsuccessful. And the League is actually now planning to try again to get a reform by referendum. And over in Utah, it's really a particularly sad story. I think that they really worked hard, and not as they did in Ohio, but to modify a law, to try to get through referendum to get a law on the ballot, and it was adopted by the voters by a significant margin. But this is where I talk about the fine points here. The legislature is able to change the bill after it has been approved by the voters. Well, I mean, guess what happened? They completely gutted it. And the League is now part of a group that is suing the legislature, saying that they should not be able to change a bill that has been adopted by the citizens, who are presumably the underlying authority. And in Florida, they also have a somewhat limited CIR process that means they can only pursue a single subtopic in a given measure. And they chose to go for a reform that was focused on criteria. How should you draw the maps? But the legislature and the governor did not follow the criteria after they were adopted by the voters. And they instead do a gerrymander in both cycles. And there was corrective action in the court in 2015, which resulted in a better map. But I don't believe there has yet been action in this cycle. So it's not a perfect system, but on the other hand, all of the independent commissions that are out there is pretty much how they were adopted, as I say. So I should also note, in talking about the last cycle, that 2 states that, again, that they don't have CIR, they adopted it through the legislature with huge amounts of effort, just amazing efforts that went in. I mean, in Virginia, we were kept in touch with them, and they one of their elections, they had 500 volunteers out promoting the idea of having an independent commission. But ultimately, the reforms were adopted through the legislature, and both of them failed. I won't go into the details, but unless people want them. But both reforms failed, and maps were ultimately drawn by the court. In fact, New York, you may have seen in the news, New York is still involved in lawsuits about this, even now. But fortunately, our sister leagues have produced just an amazing amount of work, of studies and positions and other kinds of documents. And we found documents in 18 different state leagues. including Florida, and including Oregon, where I grew up. We were always taught that this was an Oregon system. Others might challenge that. But there are at least 9 league full-scale studies on CIR. There are 18 league positions and or program elements on CIR, and there are a bunch of other league documents as well. So really, we have a range of different approaches and different kinds of documentation that we can look at to build on the work that we have done, which Ellen talked about. And our study, I'm glad to say, is now underway, just getting started, but we're underway. The state board authorized us to do a state study, and we have formed a team, but more members are certainly welcome. Ellen Reckow and I are sort of doing the co-organizing stage of this. We have met the target that was set for us by the board for recruiting members to be a part of the team. And in addition, state board member Sandra Mowell of Henderson is going to be overseeing our work and participating in the study, representing the board. And we currently have 5 leagues represented, our own league, of course, also Piedmont Triad, the Northeast, Henderson, and the Scotland Mal and Lower Cape Fear. So so we're in actually maybe 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6. And work is really just getting started, though, as I said. And we hope to be able to adopt a position by concurrence where we agree with what we just agree and accept as a position, something that another state has. We alternatively, we could develop a new North Carolina position, although I think we would still be drawing very heavily on really the wealth of work that has been done on this across the National League. And the board would have to approve the final study recommendations and determine the next implementation steps, which could be to adopt a position, which is what we need, to be able to then take action. In the league, we cannot take action without having a position. So that's really what we're about. So if and when we get that far, it's off to the races. It will be necessary to inform and mobilize our league members across the state so that they are able to advocate for CIR and also to build up support and doing presentations together with our partners across the state, and to educate the public about CIR and why we need it. It's many people that were, I mean, I can't imagine how many times I've spoken with someone who's moved to the state, fairly recently, and said, why don't you guys just do, an initiative? I was like, well, can't do that here. And they're like, what? I thought everybody had that. No. So, we have to educate people about why we need it and what it involves, and then advocate for its adoption in the legislature. We're still, finalizing, obviously, the study, sort of apex of the study, and the study design parameters, whether we should conduct interviews or just review documents, should interview our partner organizations to lay the groundwork for building a coalition. We would definitely need to have a strong and broad coalition to be able to have any chance of getting our legislature to adopt this. So this is an opportunity in the study, is to engage with them. And of course, to engage local leagues, other than having individual members, how can we bring everybody along and use it as an opportunity to educate as we're studying, as well as, of course, the final product. And outreach to national and other state local leagues, especially our leagues in the South, because as we were discussing informally before we got started here, that there's really in the South, we do not have this. There is a limited form in Florida and the lost form in Mississippi, and that's about it. So local leagues, the question is, what kind of participation should we have? Should we have a formal consensus process? It's written or online or in person, which is an opportunity for educating and, would help to make it stronger, but it's also a huge effort to organize that, especially as we haven't done one in quite a while. I don't, not to my experience anyway. And then how to format study products and get out there and start talking to people, assuming a position is approved. They can't do that until that is done. And whether how we can use the written report, whether we should have public presentations or presentations with partners, how we promote it. We have a website, et cetera. What we can do to really, bring this to the attention of the public and begin the debate of whether or not we should adopt this and how to go about doing that. This is really an historic opportunity for the league to show leadership. There was an effort in in 2009, I think that there was a kind of a commission that was part of the legislature that came out with a bill to create these tools, but that bill never advanced. And then more recently, in 2009, none other than Tim Moore, our speaker, proposed a bill when he was in the minority, and then forgot about it when he was not. So that's all I have to present, and I really welcome your questions and suggestions and engagement in undertaking the study. So I'll unshare my screen.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for that great overview. I think it's important also to note that both National League policy and state league policy in North Carolina does advocate for independent redistricting commissions. So the goal that we're working towards is league position to have an independent commission. The problem we have is that the General Assembly doesn't want to give up power, so they are not pursuing that, but that is what the league feels is optimal to have fair districts for Congress and for the state legislature. So that's what we're up against here. And I would just say, given that there's only about a dozen of us, if you want to ask a question, I mean, you can write it in the chat or just use the reactions icon down on
To raise your hand or whatever.
Or raise your hand if you're on screen, and we'll see you and recognize you for a question, if you have any.
Or comment, or suggestion, or complaint.
Sue has her thumb up. Sue, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I can't. I haven't used Zoom for a long time.
Okay.
So I'm not, my picture isn't even on the screen, so I wasn't sure. You can hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can
from,
see you.
Okay.
We can see you.
Oh, really? Okay. Anyhow, I came from Colorado in 2011, and I'm one of those that, I mean, we just did so much with and I'm not sure, we didn't call it referendum, we just called it Citizen Initiative. And I thought referendum meant it got referred to somebody. I'm trying to remember who, the legislature maybe, or, but.
Referendum, yeah, is where you can challenge typically where you can challenge a bill after it's been adopted by the legislature.
Okay, all right.
So you can gather petitions to undo something that they've done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was wonderful. And we did it for judges, how we selected judges. We did it for transportation. In Boulder, we did it for campaign finance and also for open space back in the 60s, as well as a redistricting commission. And it just, I mean, it was wonderful. And I didn't appreciate it while I was there until I got here and realized we didn't have it. But I'm 84 now, so I'm a little out of the loop. And Orange, Durham, Chatham, their league is so different than we were in Boulder that I've been having a hard time, figuring out how to participate. We had units there, and we would discuss things within the units. And I was in the Fairfax League in Virginia also, and we did it there also, where we had units, and that's how we reached consensus on things. And I'm just not sure, it seems like it would be a good idea to have consensus within the, from all the leagues if possible. And then I think, as I recall, on a state issue, we voted on it at the state convention. That's how it got adopted as a position for the state league. So, but, I really think it's, you need to have the position now. You may not be able to use it right away, but, just to be able to have it on our books, so to speak, when the time comes. And I'm wondering, would Common Cause, are there other groups like Common Cause or the American AAUW and maybe some others that you know of that could, join with us at some, once we have a position?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I want to speak to that latter question. I do agree with you. I mean, I think it is very important to try to engage people in this. But I'll never forget Chris Carson, she was the head of the California League when they got an independent redistricting commission established, and then she became the national president, and she came down to speak to us at a conference on redistricting, and that Common Cause had organized actually. And I'll never forget her saying that the first thing, you must have a broad coalition to get this to happen. So it is very important to have as many groups as possible. We have had coalitions to try to get redistricting reform. We've been part of other people's coalitions as well. It is really critical, although we have not had the kind of broad coalition that we've seen in other states such as Ohio, where they had really powerful groups on there. It's really the kind of the usual suspects, the left-leaning groups, the Common Causes, the ACLUs, etc. But it is, but yeah, there's a lot to be learned from how other states have gotten this done, for sure.
Well, again, I'm sorry. Again, it was in Colorado. It was already in effect when I got there. So I'm not sure how they did it, but I think actually the Western states, maybe originally when they became states, it was part of their original constitution. So so Western states are different than Eastern states, I discovered. So
yeah, this is true. Yeah, I was born in San Francisco, grew up in Oregon. So yeah, Oregon, we were taught in school, the primaries and referendum and recall, those are the Oregan system.
yeah.
I think Minnesota disagrees, but anyway, but yeah, for sure.
I think Ruth Ann has a question.
Sorry.
I just wanted to echo what Sue said, that I've been in the league for for 50 years. And there's another value to being in a league study group too. I was in a league study group studying Connecticut finances when I lived in Connecticut in the 1970s. And I retained the information that I learned in that study. It's amazing to me now how much of that has stuck with me. And so there's a strong personal value from putting your energies into a league study and the unit system where you sit with a small group and discuss your differences and what you agree on. It's a good system for you as well as for the league.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, there have been a few studies done, but really we don't have that anymore as a part of our regular ongoing process. And I do think it's something we should try to bring back. My personal feeling is that things like hot topics, which I'm obviously not against, have kind of replaced that. It became sort of easier to just have a speaker and do that kind of event rather than like you say, the meetings and the ongoing work that you have to do a study, whether it's local or statewide or national.
Yeah.
But Ruth Ann, are you going to be involved in a study on tax issues or?
Yes. I am actually co-leader of the state study of the state tax review, reviewing our position on taxation in North Carolina. And so, in fact, that committee is meeting tomorrow morning, and we are making plans for a webinar, which will, I think, probably happen on the 23rd of January, where we have a speaker lined up for that first session, and then there will be other sessions that people can turn into. And if you learn the vocabulary and the principles of fair taxation, it contributes to your ability to make constructive arguments for various league positions, and you've got we've got to be able to choose the words ourselves and not let extremists define our positions.
And
Well,
in looking
keep
into this,
us-
I mean,
I
there,
just want to say,
there's
keep
really-
us posted, Ruth Ann, on when that talk's going to occur later in the month, because we want to get the word out to our members to listen in.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was going to say there have been other studies done on taxation. I just found in that report that they're mentioned. So they should all be in storage at the Wilson Library on campus.
Oh,
So,
thanks for that tip. Good.
yeah. They're in the North Carolina collection. I think you have to do it by arrangement, but they do exist,
Yes.
Linda, did
and hopefully
you
they're there.
want to chime in here? Did I see your hand up?
Now, I'm a newbie here, so I'm still getting used to North Carolina, having been in Florida for 10 years. I would love to help participate in this.
Oh,
I
good.
enjoy doing study efforts, regardless
Oh,
of
great.
research
That'd be great.
efforts. And there are some elements of Florida that are issues, as you know.
Yes.
I would be happy to help discuss that.
Well, it would be great to have, I mean, I've read about it, but it's not the same at all as living through it. So no,
Yeah.
but we would definitely welcome, you to be part of our effort
So
on
you
this.
want to be part of the Citizen Initiative study or the tax study? Which one?
No, the Citizen Initiative.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to also, yeah, if I can, kind of long distance.
Okay, Sue, that's great.
Yeah, I don't drive at night, but I, could work, do things during the day in the Chapel Hill area, so,
Well,
We
we're
can also
going
do
to have the
private Zoom
first
meetings,
yeah.
few meetings probably via Zoom, because of the fact that when you're pulling in from across a big, long state like North Carolina,
Right.
it's a lot more convenient to do it by Zoom. So that's great. Well, what Jennifer can do is she actually sent out the invite to the first 6 people, 7 people who she's attracted from other parts of the state today. But she can send you a copy and you can participate in the survey as to what date would be good for you.
in terms of meeting times.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
But what I would encourage is to get ready. It would be great to, the link is in the chat, but you can also just go to the League of Women Voters ODC website and go to the Learning Center, and you will find the study that the Sanford students did and the talk by the professor from the Sanford School, Asher Hildebrand. Both of those will be excellent background for you. And each one will just take you about maybe half hour to 3/4 of an hour to get through them. They're not really long. So we appreciate that. Are any other comments or questions? Well, we really want to thank you for your participation. And I'm glad that particularly the new members here joined us tonight. I found when I joined the league, I was pulled in quickly. When I moved here in 1980, I think I joined the league in 81 or 82. Before I knew it, I was made a chair of a committee. So we're not going to do that to you, but it is a great way to meet people. And I've always valued my friends in the league because league people are special, in my opinion. So it's great to have you on.
Yeah, and I see that Lynn is also interested in participating, but you're your name is just shown as your last name is iPad, which is probably not your last name.
Sorry about that. That was for something else.
It's okay.
My last name is Means, Means.
I'm just writing that down.
MEANS.
ANS.
And you're interested in participating also?
Yeah.
Great.
I
That would be
have
really
no
good.
experience though, unlike others who have been living this. I'm just still in a state of shock having moved from Maine. So
Oh, and Maine
You-
just did a great study. I mean, they
Yeah.
did a reasonably recently. It's one of the really, they did a tremendously well organized, and that's that's one of the things about the league. We can look at what other states have done,
Yeah.
and there are all these great examples of
Yeah.
people having, done stuff. But the main study, which was very, like in the past couple of years, I believe, seemed to be one of the best studies. There were many good ones, but that was, and we can definitely, in terms of consensus process and that kind of thing, we can definitely draw on these other studies.
And what they were doing with their study was they had the initiative available to them. It had been approved and it was being used, not a lot, but it was being used. They were evaluating whether there should be changes to some of the provisions. So yes, there was a study done. So maybe that would be one, you could help research what what they looked at and some of the current provisions versus what they recommended and whether any of them were instituted, the changes. I don't know.
We could have them come talk to us about, not come obviously on by Zoom, on flying down here, on their experience of doing the study and what they found. Yeah, I think they've also had it in Maine for quite a while in terms of the actual process. So yeah, that would be good.
But the state of Maryland is a little closer to our situation. They don't have it. And I'm not sure they still do, but they did a study, the league did a study in 2018 evaluating the merits of establishing CIR. So, but I'm not sure it's ever gotten approved. So we need to look
I
at
don't
that.
think so, but that brings up the question in an ideal world, although I don't know that this is even, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, maybe it's not a good idea, but there are in the South, because of Jim Crow, which is when this progressive era reforms were being adopted, that that they never went anyplace really in the South. And I think that this is something which blocks not only us from getting redistricting reform, but the rest of our sister states in the South as well. And it could be that, in terms of building a coalition, that having bringing in other, not to help us here, they're not gonna do that, but, to build momentum and to really get larger groups interested in joining in, it may be that getting other states in the South involved in looking at this reform or encouraging them to do it would also be, part of getting this to happen.
Yeah, Florida has limited citizen initiative, but now I think there's a push to maybe get rid of that, even the limited rights that they have. I think the current legislature isn't that happy that it is available to citizens.
Yeah, it's not something that the legislatures necessarily love, but on the other hand, people did succeed back in the day, and I doubt that they were any more supportive then. So it is, and we in order to succeed, we would have to have bipartisan support from the voters in order to have any shot at getting this. And that is one of the issues, because one can easily think of things that we would not want to see developed, to see approved this way.
And I just want to point out some interesting stats. So in 2022, after the Supreme Court ruled against the Roe versus Wade decision, 3 states had referenda on the ballot to protect abortion rights. And they were approved, and one that would have restricted rights was defeated. The other thing is, if you go back, I look back over the past 20 years, there were 28 referenda on minimum wage increases in states across the country. And in 26 states, they passed. Only 2 were they defeated. It was defeated. But so over half of our states that had, in the country, have increased the minimum wage via referenda. It's not the only way. I mean, the state legislature kind of dropped a law, but it's interesting that 26 of them, it was via referendum of the people.
Well, and
Yeah. I just want to comment on, I mean, the labor movement, those of you who are newcomers to the state will also discover that we have a lot of, we're Taft-Hartley territory. We're a very much, suppression of labor movements, but there is nonetheless a very active labor movement in the state. And even though sometimes they operate as a local of a union outside the state because they're not able to establish themselves as a local here. As a union here. So that would also be, they could be important allies. There are some quite, SEIU and some of the other big unions could be allies in this for sure. Unite Here, some of the others.
So as a result, North Carolina is in the minority and related to wage, that we are still mired in with the federal minimum wage as our minimum wage, which is becoming increasingly uncommon in this country. That it's
and that might be something, like saying, well, we could change this, people. That might be something that would appeal to a broad swath of North Carolinians of lower income, regardless of party, because I'm sure that, well, I feel confident, and maybe I'm wrong, but that Democrats getting the minimum wage and Republicans getting the minimum wage are equally unhappy with the minimum wage being where it is.
Yeah.
Even independents.
You could also use the reference initiative for things like gun control and abortion, and I mean redistricting is kind of the tip of the iceberg on what it could be used for. So
right.
Oh, absolutely. No, intention is definitely not to limit it in that way, but indeed, I mean, but also, of course, redistricting, then you end up with a legislature that won't adopt what you want them to adopt.
Right.
So, but yeah, for sure. No, there is a wide range of things.
yeah.
And
Gun
that's
safety
where we
comes to
could
mind.
look at some of the state surveys, because the Elon poll surveys usually 3 or 4 times a year. And when they survey, for example, last time I looked at the gun control issue, majority of residents wanted some
Exactly.
gun
Yeah.
control.
And there are
And
numbers.
so
Right.
we have a General Assembly that's disregarding the will of the people.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly. And,
right.
yeah,
And
all
it's when you get that tension that this type of thing is a release, right? It's a way for citizens to say, hey, if you're not listening to us,
right.
we're going to try to get this on the ballot
Yeah.
and show you that it's important to the people.
We
So,
did in Boulder, we did a campaign finance initiative, and we went to the city council before we got this. We were close to getting a number of signatures that we needed. We went to the city council to ask them if they would put it on the ballot for the next election, and they wouldn't do it. And we said, okay, you've had your chance. Now we'll get the voters to decide. So it passed by 66% of the vote. So it was,
wow, that's a
well,
great margin.
yeah, I mean, but it was things the voters, and I loved getting signatures on the petitions. And one of the things, I remember people coming up to me and saying, oh, if the league is supporting this, of course I'll sign this petition. I mean, we had so much credibility with the public. Now, this was, 15 years ago, but it really, it made me feel good to be a member of the league and have that kind of attitude in the community. So it was good.
Yeah, and the redistricting reform that they adopted was really a model bill. It was on the California model, but it was, and the legislators actually adopted it as a bill because they could see that there were two referenda that were heading their way,
Yeah,
and they figured that they would try to retain some control. But the bills were certainly among for the state and for the Congress were among the better bills adopted in the last cycle for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of an eye opener for the elected officials.
All right. Well, this has been a great discussion, and the interest is really welcome. So we have 3 volunteers to help out. That is terrific.
Yeah, definitely.
And we thank you for joining, and we will be in touch. And
Yeah,
so
if you have friends, I mean, we welcome, you can, this will be posted, I think it takes a couple of days, for Zoom to download it and everything, but it will shortly be posted as a recording on the League's Learning Center that Ellen was mentioning. And feel free to refer people to it, and because this is just going to be, the study is not going to be as big an effort, but going after this is going to be, would be a huge effort.
Right.
So which we hope to be able to undertake. But it is we need all the help we can get for sure.
Right. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks again.